Legendary Passages, Episode 82, VIII Argonauts. The Love of Medea, from the Argonautica. Previously, Jason and the Argonauts sailed all the way from Iolcus to Colchus to retrieve the Golden Fleece. This passage shows his meeting with Medea, obtaining her help to overcome the trials, and his promise of love and never-ending gratitude. The Love of Medea, a legendary passage from APOLLONIUS RHODIUS, Argonautica, Book 3, translated by R.C. Seaton. Nor was Medea's heart turned to other thoughts, for all her singing, and never a song that she essayed pleased her long in her sport. But in confusion she ever faltered, nor did she keep her eyes resting quietly upon the throng of her handmaids. But to the pass far off she strained her gaze, turning her face aside. Oft did her heart sink, fainting within her bosom, whenever she fancied she heard passing by the sound of a footfall or of the wind. But soon he appeared to her longing eyes, striding along loftily, like Sirius coming from the ocean, which rises fair and clear to see, but brings unspeakable mischief to flocks. Thus then did Aeson's son come to her, fair to see, but the sight of him brought love-sick care. Her heart fell from out her bosom, and a dark mist came over her eyes, and a hot blush covered her cheeks. And she had no strength to lift her knees, backwards or forwards, but her feet beneath her were rooted to the ground. And meantime all her handmaids had drawn aside. So they two stood face to face without a word, without a sound, like oaks or lofty pines, which stand quietly side by side on the mountains when the wind is still. Then again, when stirred by the breath of the wind, they murmur ceaselessly. So they two were destined to tell out all their tale, stirred by the breath of love. And Aeson's son saw that she had fallen into some heaven-sent calamity, and with soothing words thus addressed her. "Why, pray maiden, dost thou fear me so much, all alone as am I? Never was I one of these idle boasters such as other men are, not even aforetime when I dwelt in my own country. Wherefore, maiden, be not too much abashed before me, either to inquire whatever thou wilt, or to speak thy mind. But since we have met one another with friendly hearts in a hallowed spot where it is wrong to sin, speak openly and ask questions, and beguile me not with pleasing words. For at the first thou didst promise thy sister to give me the charms of my heart desires. I implore thee by Hecate herself, by thy parents, and by Zeus who holds his guardian hand over strangers and suppliants. I come here to thee, both a suppliant and a stranger, bending the knee in my sore need. For without thee and thy sister, never shall I prevail in the grievous contest. And to thee I will render thanks hereafter for thy aid, as is right and fitting for men who dwell far oft, making glorious thy name and fame, and the rest of the heroes, returning to Hellas, will spread thy renown, and so will the heroes' wives and mothers, who now perhaps are sitting on the shore and making moan for us. Their painful affliction thou mightest scatter to the winds. In days past, the maiden Ariadne, daughter of Minos, with kindly intent rescued Theseus from grim contests, the maiden whom Pasiphae, daughter of Helios, bare. But she, when Minos had lulled his wrath to rest, went aboard the ship with him, and left her fatherland. And her even the immortal gods loved, and, as a sign in mid-sky, a crown of stars, which men call Ariadne's crown, rose along all night among the heavenly constellations. so to thee too shall be thanks from the gods, if thou wilt save so mighty an array of chieftains. For surely from thy lovely form thou art like to excel in gentle courtest. Thus he spake, honoring her, and she cast her eyes down with a smile divinely sweet, and her soul melted within her, uplifted by his praise, and she gazed upon him face to face, nor did she know what word to utter first, but was eager to pour out everything at once. And forth from her fragrant girdle, ungrudgingly, she brought out the charm, and he at once received it in his hands with joy. And she would even have drawn out all her soul from her breast and given it to him, exulting in his desire. So wonderfully did love flash forth of sweet flame from the golden head of Aeson's son, and he captivating her gleaming eyes, and her heart within grew warm, melting away as the dew melts away around roses when warmed by the morning's light. And now both were fixing their eyes on the ground abashed, and again were throwing glances at each other, smiling with the light of love beneath their radiant brows. And at last, and scarcely then, did the maiden greet him.
Take heed now, that I may devise help for thee. When at thy coming my father has given thee the deadly teeth from the dragon's jaws for sowing, then watch for the time when the night is parted in twain, then bathe in the stream of the tireless river, and alone, apart from others, clad in dusky raiment, dig a rounded pit, and therein slay a ewe, and sacrifice it whole, heaping high the pyre on the very edge of the pit, and propitiate only begotten Hecate, daughter of Perses, pouring from a goblet the hive-stored labor of bees. And then, when thou hast heedfully sought the grace of the goddess, retreat from the pyre, and let neither the sound of feet drive thee to turn back, nor the baying of hounds, lest haply thou shouldst maim all the rites, and thyself fail to return duly to thy comrades. And at dawn steep this charm in water, strip and anoint thy body wherewith as with oil, and in it there will be boundless prowess and mighty strength, and thou wilt deem thyself a match not for men but for the immortal gods. And besides, let thy spear and shield and sword be sprinkled. Thereupon the spearheads of the earth-born men shall not pierce thee, nor the flame of the deadly bulls as it rushes forth resistless. But such thou shalt be not for long, but for that one day, still never flinch from the contest. And I will tell thee besides of yet another help. As soon as thou hast yoked the strong oxen, and with thy might and thy prowess hast ploughed all the stubborn fallow, and now along the furrows the giants are springing up, when the serpent's teeth are sown in the dusky clods, if thou markest them uprising in throngs from the fallow, cast unseen among them a massy stone, and they over it, like ravening hounds over their food, will slay one another. And do thou thyself hasten to rush to the battle strife, and the fleece thereupon thou shalt bear far away from Aea. Nevertheless, depart wherever thou wilt, or thy pleasure take thee, when thou hast gone hence.
Thus she spake, and cast her eyes to her feet in silence, and her cheek, divinely fair, was wet with warm tears, as she sorrowed, for that he was about to wander far from her side over the wide sea. And once again she addressed him face to face with mournful words, and took his right hand, for now shame had left her eyes.
Remember, if haply thou returnest to thy home, Medea's name, and so will I remember thine, though thou be far away. And of thy kindness tell me this, where is thy home, whither thou shalt sail hence in thy ship over the sea? Wilt thou come near wealthy Orchomenus, or near the Aegean isle? And tell me of the maiden, whosoever she be that thou hast named, the far-renowned daughter of Pasiphae, who is kinswoman to my father.
Thus she spake, and over him too, at the tears of the maiden, stole Love the destroyer, and thus he answered her. All too surely do I deem that never by night and never by day will I forget thee if I escape death, and indeed make my way in safety to the Achaean land, and Aeetes set not before us some other contest worse than this. And if it pleases thee to know about my fatherland, I will tell it out, for indeed my own heart bids me do that. There is a land encircled by lofty mountains, rich in sheep and in pasture, where Prometheus, son of Iapetus, begat goodly Deucalion, who first founded cities and reared temples to the immortal gods, and first ruled over men. This land the neighbors who dwelt around called Haemonia. And in it stands Iolcus, my city, and in it many others, where they have not so much as heard the name of the Aeaean Isle. Yet there is a story that, Minyas starting thence, Minyas, son of Aeolus, built long ago the city of Orchomenus that borders on the Cadmeans. But why do I tell thee all this vain talk of our home and of Minos' daughter, fair-famed Ariadne, by which glorious name they called that lovely maiden of whom thou askest me? Would that, as Minos then was well inclined to Theseus for her sake, so may thy father be joined to us in friendship. Thus he spake, soothing her with gentle converse. But pangs most bitter stirred her heart, and in grief did she address him with vehement words.
In Hellas, I ween, this is fair to pay heed to covenants. But Aeetes is not such a man among men as thou sayest was Pasiphae's husband of Minos, nor can I liken myself to Ariadne. Wherefore speak not of guest love. But only do thou, when thou hast breachest Iolcus, remember me, and thee, even in my parents' despite, will I remember. And from far off may a rumour come to me, or some messenger bird, when thou forgettest me. Or me, even me, may swift blasts catch up and bear over the sea hence to Iolcus, that I may cast reproaches in thy face, and remind thee that it was by my good will thou didst escape. May I then be seated in thy halls, an unexpected guest.
Thus she spake with pitiful tears falling down her cheeks, and to her Jason replied, Let the empty blast wander at will, lady, and the messenger bird, for vain is thy talk. But if thou comest to those abodes, and to the land of Hellas, honored and reverenced shall thou be by women and men, and they shall worship thee even as a goddess, for that by thy counsel their sons came home again. Their brothers and kinsmen and stalwart husbands were saved from calamity. And in our bridal chamber shalt thou prepare our couch, and nothing shall come between our love, till the doom of death fold us round. Thus he spake, and her soul melted within her to hear his words. Nevertheless she shuddered to behold the deeds of destruction to come. Poor wretch! Not long was she destined to refuse a home in Hellas. For thus Hera devised it, that Aeon Medea might come to Iolcus for a bane to Peleus, forsaking her native land. And now her handmaids, glancing at them from a distance, were grieving in silence, and the time of day required that the maiden should return home to her mother's side. But she thought not yet of departing, for her soul delighted both in his beauty and his winsome words. But Aeson's son took heed, and spake at last, though late. It is time to depart, lest the sunlight sink before we know it, and some stranger notice all. But again we will come and meet here. So did they two make trial of one another thus far with gentle words, and thereafter parted. This passage continues with Jason yoking the bronze bulls, but in our next passage, Jason and Medea sail away with the Golden Fleece.